Damn right. It's good to be here tonight. Before I start off on a little tirade, I want to send a special thank you out to Linda McMahon, because I was sitting at the house and the phone rang and she says Stone Cold, and I said, what? This is Linda McMahon. You want to be the co-general manager of Raw? And that wasn't an easy question to answer. I just got the phone a little closer to my mouth and said, Linda, oh, hell yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. The co-general manager.
And at first I said, okay, I'll be the co-general manager. I'm just going to kind of take it easy and just kind of cruise in and just make a low-profile deal. And I said, well, hell.
Uh-oh.
I kept thinking about it, and I kept thinking about it a little more, and I said, well, why don't we go out there and make us a low-profile deal? I ain't never done nothing low-profile in my life.
Let's get that right. Yeah, not his nature. Certainly not his nature.
As a treat to myself, tonight, right here in the middle of my ring, I'm going to throw the biggest damn beer bash in the history of Monday Night Raw.
What? We're going to have a beer bash. A beer bash? Wait a minute.
I'm going to drink about a case of beer. No, I'm going to drink about 2 cases of beer. No, I might drink 3 cases of beer.
Oh, my gosh.
And it ain't just going to be a party. This is a Stone Cold beer bash.
Stone Cold beer bash.
Now, okay, enough with the celebrating and patting myself on the back. People paying money to see me in a 20-by-20 ring. Before drinking since 316. Let's get to the business end of this. There are a lot of things that were done when Stone Cold Steve Austin was sitting at the house, and a lot of things I didn't really agree with. A lot of things I thought were really stupid ideas. One of the stupid ideas was when some jackass abolished the Intercontinental title.
What?
The damn Intercontinental title has been one of the most important titles I've ever won in my life.
And it got abolished?
So, one of the things I want to mention tonight, and it's going to be one of many probably, is that Judgment Day, there will be a battle royal.
Uh-oh.
And the winner of that battle royal will be the new Intercontinental Champion.
Oh, the Intercontinental title's coming back. Rattlesnake making his presence known right away. Not wasting any time, that is for sure.
Now, all you got to do to enter this contest, if you were a former IC champion on Raw.
You think they like the new co-general manager here on Raw?
Well, thank you very much. But if you're a former IC champion on Raw, then you can enter this tournament. Winner of the Battle Royal will be the champion, and that's at Judgment Day. That's at Judgment Day. That's a little bit down the road. I wanted to do something right here tonight.
Oh, boy. I told you it was going to be
something that should have been done a long time ago.
Welcome back to another edition of the 20-by-20 Ring Crew. I am here with Matt, and I am Joe, coming back at you again this week for another episode. How you doing, Matt?
What's going on?
We are all in, sir.
That we are.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are officially all in. We'll be there September 1st at the Sears Center in Hoffman Estates, which is a suburb of Chicago. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, it is the biggest independent wrestling show. Well, I don't know about biggest, but most anticipated. It's got to be biggest. Yeah, I would think so. 10,000.
Well, I mean, I looked at this the other day, All In, and this is from multiple sources, but I could be wrong. The first show outside of WWE to do 10,000 here in the United States since WCW.
That was what, 1993, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a pretty big deal, ladies and gentlemen. No matter how you look at it.
And this is not not a company doing this. These are
three guys.
So. That's if you're on that WWE bandwagon, you're gonna scoff at this and say no big deal. But you're going to be in the minority in that case. This is a huge deal for professional wrestling.
Definitely. We're ecstatic. We ended up going through StubHub to get tickets, but we're ecstatic. We're going to be there, and we're going to have a hell of a time.
Well, why did we have to go to StubHub? This is a show, according to the Bucks and Cody, they were projected to sell 4,000 tickets in the first week. This is from their mouths themselves.
Let's see. 49 minutes. We're
well, it's sold out in 30 minutes.
Oh, jeez.
It's sold out in 30 minutes.
I don't know if we could officially say it.
It is. I just tried to buy a ticket.
I think we have to technically wait until we get the call from the box office.
But it looks good.
It looks
and
like
it
it's
looks
sold out.
like the hype has lived, and I'm
so proud.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It wasn't that crazy of a chance.
I said,
all, right?
well, when we were in the car, I had a feeling. I told you, I said, it's going to sell it today. I didn't know it was going to be in less than an hour.
The buzz going into the press conference was like, oh, man, I could actually feel it.
Yeah.
It felt like something, you know what I mean? And I don't know what to say.
I feel so. It's like, for me, it's almost a bittersweet because a lot of the resellers are getting these tickets.
Yeah.
And I saw on StubHub there's $1,100 front rows, and that's not what we wanted. But you know what? Like, the fact that this ticket is such a hot selling ticket, like,
it's crazy.
We created this thing. So
yeah.
It feels good.
Yep.
It feels empowering. And,
now the show can't
suck. No, it's going to be good.
It's got to be a good show. Damn.
It's kind of hard to put words into how we all feel, but I think we're all happy and excited.
We're all in, bro.
I hope everybody who wants a ticket gets a ticket, though. I really do. That was the whole point of this, right? So.
Yeah.
They sold out in 30 minutes.
Yeah, 30 minutes. That's all it took.
So that's the reason why we had to go through StubHub, because we tried. We tried.
Everybody tried.
Yeah.
Everybody was stuck in that fucking virtual waiting room. Couldn't even get them on the phone. Yeah, it was pretty horrendous. I know Matt and myself tried for the better part of 2 hours.
Yeah,
trying to get tickets, so we just finally decided, screw it, we'll pay the extra dough. We're gonna be there.
To us.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Definitely.
You know, because you gotta look at it this way. If this is the only All In, we were at the only All In. This is the first All In.
We're at the first.
So, you know, that's a huge moment for professional wrestling. I'm honored that I get to be a part of it. The 20x20 crew will be a part of All In, and we're going to have so much coverage coming at you leading up all the way to September 1st.
I wish more people had that attitude towards it. There's a lot of people online who are kind of being dicks about the fact that three independent wrestlers, made this happen.
Yeah.
And that it's not some big giant corporation doing it. I don't get it. I've come across a lot of different fans from a lot of different attitudes and places. It kills me. Like, either you like wrestling or you don't. If it bugs you that much that something like this is going on, then guess what? You don't like wrestling, or I should say, you don't love wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, this is right here. This is exactly what professional wrestling is all about. It's whatever the product is. It's getting the fan support, the buzz to again fill it out a 10,000 person arena in the amount of time that they did, because they're excited about professional wrestling. And keep in mind, you don't know the card. There's only one match booked for this thing so far. We have no idea what this card is going to be. We have no idea who's even going to be competing, with the exception of the ones that are heavily involved. They're more likely will be competing that night. But other than that, you don't know. You have no idea what to expect from this, other than the fact that you know that three guys put in so much time, so much money, so much effort, and more importantly, so much heart and soul into a show that you really don't care. You have so much faith in them that you say, I'm all in as well. That's what it's all about.
I was really shocked to hear that the NWA is a part of this. Billy Corgan throwing his hat into the situation. His NWA heavyweight champion Nick Aldis will be defending against Cody at All In. I'm pretty damn excited. I know a lot of people out there are so against NWA right now. They're in quite the rebuilding process. I get that. As far as that heavyweight title goes, you got to give them credit for what they're doing. It's going to be a long road for that title to regain the prestige that it once had.
Yeah.
This, you got to keep in mind, because a lot of people are kind of confused about this. I'm going to put it out there. Number one, the whole situation with this world title, none of this is Billy Billy Corgan's fault. And I think
Right.
that's a common misconception amongst today's fans. Number two, are there better wrestlers out there to hold that title other than Nick Aldis? Probably. But for the situation and for who they have on their roster, Nick Aldis is probably their best bet at this point. I think it's safe to say that we'll see Cody take that belt come September 1st, because let's face it, Billy Corgan would be shooting himself in the foot if that didn't happen, especially if they want the NWA to keep growing. What better way to grow it than with a second generation or third generation wrestler who has quite a legacy attached to him.
And I also read too that it'd be the first time for that title.
Yes. So I can almost guarantee that win. If it doesn't happen, still, it's still a part of wrestling history that's going to happen September 1st, right here in Chicago, or Chicagoland, I should say.
What I hope doesn't happen is we're watching No Mercy 2002 currently right now, and we'll tell you why exactly we're watching this program in here in a second. The middle rope collapsed in the middle of the match. Jericho's about to do a moonsault, and he realized it, thankfully, and still did the moonsault on the top rope, but it had the again, middle rope was completely gone. So hopefully we don't have that kind of malfunction at All In.
Yeah, that would be great not to happen.
Yeah, but no, absolutely. And with Cody being the type of draw that he is, obviously, because it happened via a line salt, so it completely snapped on Chris Jericho. The type of draw that Cody is, obviously, because he was 1/3 of All In as far as the group that put this together. Obviously, he's a huge draw, but what he brings to the table with the NWA World Heavyweight Championship with Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling, that title can see the world at a more quicker rate than what you would have with what you have right now. So it would totally make sense. I would hope that they put this match together and for the fact that Cody should take that title from Nick Aldis at All In.
Hey, and you know what? This is not a knock on Nick Aldis either.
No, not at all.
Again, for those of you who are not familiar, you do have Nick Aldis doing his challenge right now. 22 bouts in 30 days. He's up there. He's either close to being done or done. I think his most recent title defense was, or at least one of the most recent title defenses was against Colt Cabana, and that happened in China. So they're really pushing the hell out of that title as much as they can with whatever they have. Again, huge rebuilding process. I'm probably going to get a bunch of heat for this, but, big thank you and big props to Billy Corgan for help making this happen.
Absolutely.
Last week on the episode, we finished the show with a little WWE back and forth because of the whole co-branded pay-per-views that are coming up. We were discussing the situation with all of their title belts, because now they have SmackDown titles, they have Raw titles, all these exclusive titles to each brand, and now they might be forced to condense them. And you and I were talking about the supposedly, or it's seemingly looming condensing of rosters again and brands. Like the brand extension might go away again. And the more we talked about it, there was one bit of WWE history that Matt and I are pretty emphatic about, and that is the time the Intercontinental title got retired.
I have got a message for all the boys in the back. For all the fans, for all the writers that said that I did not deserve to be handed the World's Heavyweight Championship. I've just got one thing to say to you all. Screw you!
Wow! Well, that's like he is disrespectful to everybody. Big shot.
He's very deserving now, isn't he?
I have defeated every single person that has stepped in this ring with me. And after last night, I ended 23 years of Intercontinental title history.
That's an accomplishment.
I do what I want to do when I want to do it, and there is not a damn thing that anybody can do about it. And the reality of it is, Nate, the reality of it is, I can do it because in this world, I am untouchable.
Hey, that's Nate. I know Nate.
And not only am I deserving to be the world's heavyweight champion, I damn well might be the greatest world's champion of all time.
Arguably? You gotta argue with that, JR? Well, not tonight.
As weird as this sounds, it did happen, folks. It happened in October of 2002.
At No Mercy.
At No Mercy, one of their pay-per-views.
Which is why we're watching this.
And yeah, that's what we have on the background here on the WWE Network. Again, if you don't have your subscription already, come on, what are you waiting for? 20x20crew.com/podcast/WWE Network. That's all one word. October 20th, 2002, at No Mercy, Triple H defeats Kane and unifies the World Heavyweight Championship with the Intercontinental Championship, thereby deactivating the IC title. And this all happened in Little Rock, Arkansas, of all places.
Of all places, yeah. Shout out to Little Rock for a piece of history there.
Yeah, definitely not the first town you would kind of associate with such wrestling history. Yeah, this was a big deal, or at least in hindsight, it's a big deal.
You're talking about a title that was around for over 20 years.
23 years.
23 years.
23 years it was around before this happened.
1979 was when the title came about, and one night you erased that entire history.
That's insane.
And it's not just any title. It's not just any title. I mean, the who's who that used to be a former Intercontinental Champions. I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm sure WWE has said it many times, and there's weird statistics that they threw up on the board, but many Hall of Famers that are in their WWE Hall of Fame, again, former Intercontinental Champions. So it's not just any old run-of-the-mill title. It had the prestige.
And you know what? There's a lot of back and forth in the internet wrestling community, I guess we can call it. Critics, pundits, fans, all these people have an opinion about this belt as to whether or not it was the quote-unquote workers' belt, meaning you would have those class of WWE or WWF superstars who kind of carried the cards and did a lot of the heavy lifting for the company, have this belt at one time or another. Over the years and through many of interviews and podcasts and shoot interviews, come to find out it's all a matter of opinion. That this isn't something that Vince said, hey, this is going to be our worker belt. It was never like that.
Yeah.
It just became synonymous with all these great wrestlers because of the prestige and the situation associated with the belt. So it was never meant to be viewed as a worker's belt intentionally.
For me growing up, I always looked at the Intercontinental Championship as the title that all of my favorite wrestlers had, because you look at a guy, I'm looking at some of these right now, Cody Rhodes, you have Tito Santana, a Razor Ramon. These are guys that never held the world title, but definitely should have at some point in their career. The Intercontinental title was always that belt that it was like, here is the second tier title. This is where you'll never be, at this point, like Randy Savage prior to Hogan leaving to go make a movie. You'll never be world champion, so here's the Intercontinental title. Continue doing what you're doing for us.
When I was a young boy, ages ago, all the guys who held that belt, I also viewed as the workers of the company. The Bret Harts, the Macho Man Randy Savages,
Kurt Hennings,
all those guys were my Intercontinental champions. And you, as a fan, at least from my perspective, you couldn't help but think that way. Like, this was the title that inevitably was the stepping stone to becoming World Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah.
Whether or not that always happened was a different story. I always felt that as a fan, like, well, hell, if Bret Hart has the Intercontinental Championship, he's next in line, or he's up there for a title shot and possibly a title reign.
Right. That's the problem that I have with them taking the title away. It's, what do you do now? What do you have? Because now you have the World Heavyweight Championship, which is, again, held by Triple H. And then you have a tag team title and a women's title. But what about the rest of those individuals that are on your card? And again, you're talking about a brand extension here. So obviously, if you're doing two different shows in one company, your roster's pretty big. So therefore, it just seems that you really put yourself in a situation now to where if you're a story writer that looks at titles as props, that's fine. We've talked about how I feel about on the show. If that's how you view titles, fine. but now you have one less prop to work with. Now what do? And it wasn't like the rivalries were worth a damn at that point, so it just made sense to have an additional championship to fight over.
You would think that, but when this title got retired, I recall an interview with Eric Bischoff.
Yeah.
Where he basically stated he ran the idea past Vince McMahon. It was more or less like, hey, let's do this to kind of stir the pot and shake things up. And that was the only real reason behind this happening. That, to me, that's such a shitty reason for this to happen.
That's
but
so terrible.
That's the history of it, folks. That's all it was
let's shake things up.
Yeah, let's get some ratings out of this. We're just going to get rid of the title. We're going to hand over the old WCW, the big gold belt. We're going to hand that over to Triple H. He's not going to have to fight for it. We're just going to give it to him.
That was done in September, and then the next month he retires the Intercontinental title.
Yeah, and then the whole reason Triple H, he was just given that belt was because Brock Lesnar at the time signed to the opposite brand, and that made him exclusive to Raw. So Eric Bischoff was like, hey, I need a fucking heavyweight champion on my brand, and so this was his answer. For those of you hating on Bischoff for this, you can only hate him so much because at the end of the day, Vince McMahon had to say so.
Yeah,
so
this ain't WCW anymore. So you know, it's the Vince Russo approach. There's a filter, and obviously Vince thought it was a good idea. And
it's just crazy. It's crazy to think.
I'm going to show you something interesting in there, JR.
Please welcome the general manager of Raw, Eric Bischoff.
Well, obviously, Mr. Bischoff has got an agenda here tonight. Carrying that briefcase to the ring, I have no idea what his agenda might be. Hey, I just got an idea. Maybe it's money, JR. Maybe we're getting a raise. Or maybe I'm getting a raise. Woohoo! Well, I wouldn't hold my breath, but in any event, stranger things have happened.
You know, Brock Lesnar likes to refer to himself as the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. But ever since my competitor persuaded him to become exclusive SmackDown property, I would say that title is very, very disputed.
Uh-oh.
And you know what? You fans in this arena who I love so much,
He does.
and fans from around the world deserve better than that, damn it. You people deserve your own world champion.
What? Quite frankly,
Exclusive to Raw, the #1 brand in the history, mind you, of sports entertainment.
a world champion for Raw?
Now, Stephanie McMahon, she can refer to The Undertaker as the #1 contender if she chooses to. That's fine. That's her prerogative. And she can have her match with The Undertaker and Brock Lesnar at Unforgiven. That's fine. Because the world knows who the real #1 contender is, don't you? That's right. He's the man that proved and convinced The Undertaker right here on Raw that it's much better to jump to SmackDown and be a big fish in a little pond than it is to swim with the sharks on Raw.
Wow. There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you the real #1 contender, Triple H!
Well, Triple H certainly earned.
So, as we're doing this episode, we're actually going to talk about the World Heavyweight Championship reign of Triple H during this time, because technically that belt, again, was unified with the Intercontinental title.
What's in the briefcase is what I'm wondering. Money? He's gonna give him my money. Wait a minute. Look at this.
Triple H, you may recognize this World Championship because you were the last man to officially wear it. It's been worn by some of the greatest champions in the history of this industry. And now, Triple H, it will be again, because, ladies and gentlemen, your new world champion, Triple H!
What? God, now this is an historic moment here on Raw. Triple H has just been awarded the heavyweight championship of the world.
Well, you heard what Eric said. He was officially the last man to wear that championship belt. This is unprecedented, isn't it, JR?
It is an historic moment. It is a shocking moment here on Raw. Triple H just awarded the world's heavyweight title.
We've seen a new world champion crowned here in the first 5 minutes of the show.
Eric.
So everywhere he went and defended the World Heavyweight Championship, the big gold belt, technically he's got the IC title with him. So again, this all started officially October 20th in Little Rock, Arkansas, where Triple H defended the title against Kane.
I've never seen this before. How high is you?
Again, we're watching No Mercy from 2002 on the WWE Network, and we're pretty mesmerized with Rob Van Dam doing the Ric Flair strut back and forth. That was pretty funny. Yeah, so this all started in October of 2002. Triple H would go on to defend the World Heavyweight Championship successfully 6 times from October 25th of 2002 all the way through almost the middle of November 10th. They were all house show matches against Kane in different cities, and all these matches were wins by disqualification. So no clean wins for the champ. I don't know how I feel about that, because the typical attitude behind a champion winning clean is that he's over. You know? So I don't understand why they wouldn't let him win clean. Again, I'm not in the booker's head here, and nor do I choose to be at this point, but
Sure, yeah.
It's just weird. Why not just have Triple H go clean over Kane?
And the house show, too.
Yeah, instead of doing, 6 fucking DQ wins. But I digress.
I never understood that. Real quick here about house shows. I understand they're non-televised, that's why they're called house shows. But real quick, for anybody that does woos for Ric Flair, please get rid of that H. All right, it's not who, it's woo. There's no H in there. That always bothered me. It was always a pet peeve of mine. Not that there's many woo signs anymore, but yeah, it always just ticked me off.
That's another thing that's not around anymore. Just signs in general. We don't get a whole lot of signs anymore.
Nah, well, they're not allowed to at WWE shows. But even like we went to Ring of Honor. I was one sign. And it was for Todd Sinclair.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, going back to the house shows real quick here, the fact that you do the same exact thing every single night, it's got to be god awfully boring. I mean, as a performer, you have no limitations really. Maybe a few, I should say. Why not mix it up? Obviously, Kane's not going to win the title, but why not mix it up?
You know what? I think that's the only thing that might have happened here, and maybe that's why they had all disqualifications here, is because each night, a disqualification happened, but it happened differently.
Yeah,
that's the only thing I could think of.
I mean, because it's house shows, we're not going to know. So I guess that's a fair point. But I don't know. If I'm a professional wrestler doing house shows, I'm definitely going to mix it up. Speaking
of mixing it up, we're going to take a quick break here and hopefully mix up some bill payments. How about that? That was a really awesome segue on my part. Stay tuned.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Hey, think you can tell us what to do?
I can't tell you what to do.
You think you can tell us what to wear?
I can't tell you what to wear.
You think that you're better?
Hell no, I'm not better.
Well, you better get ready.
But I am smarter.
Bow to the masters.
I'll bow to the masters. The masters over at Raise. Raise will hook you up with all kinds of discounted gift cards for your favorite places to eat, for your favorite places to shop online and in store. They have any place you could possibly think of, and they even have discounts on ride-sharing services like Lyft and Uber in case you guys need to make it to a show. So hop on over and support the show. Support your 20x20 crew. Visit us for more information on Raise and discounted gift cards over at 20x20crew.com/podcast/raise. That's RAISE. 20x20crew.com/podcast/raise. And we got 2 words for you. Save money!
are back. Thanks for sticking around. And as we mentioned earlier, we're watching No Mercy 2002 from October 2002. And we're talking about the Intercontinental Championship going away after a 23-year reign, if you will. And we're about to watch that match. I don't know if I've ever seen it personally, to be honest with you. This is post-Cheater Box Day, so I wasn't really getting much WWE pay-per-views at the time. But anyways, the match is Kane versus Triple H. Kane is the Intercontinental Champion. Triple H is the World Heavyweight Championship. This is a title unification match. And, spoiler alert, Triple H wins, unifies the titles. And as we mentioned earlier, he goes on to defend it throughout the early months of November. Is that right?
Yes.
At house shows against the same guys, against Kane. And this would lead, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this would lead to his title defense at Survivor Series in November of 2002.
Yes, November 2002, you had the Survivor Series Elimination Chamber match.
The inaugural Elimination Chamber match, I believe.
Yes. This involved Rob Van Dam, Booker T, Chris Jericho, Triple H, Kane, and Shawn Michaels.
Yes.
It took place in good old Madison Square Garden, New York, on November 17th. And Michaels ends up winning the Elimination Chamber match. That was the main event that night. And Triple H gets carted off after the event straight to the emergency room, or I should say hospital. I wasn't there.
Yeah, I do remember this match being a mess. Not that it was a bad match per se, but I just remember being a mess of a match. And if you go back to hear from anybody talking about it, it was no surprise that it was a mess of a match because nobody knew what the hell was going on, with what to expect as far as the structure of the chamber.
And you know what? That is something you hear time and time again in different interviews from different people. Matches like this in years past, they would do that. They would take the time and have like practice matches, you
right,
know, at house shows, things like that. If they were going to introduce some sort of new structure or what have you, or some new format, they didn't get that with this. So this was new to everybody, and you could tell. You could definitely tell. Much akin to the first women's Elimination Chamber match that recently happened.
Right.
So, but I think they fared a little bit better, obviously, because they were, you know, they have been seeing the structure over the years as
right,
opposed to being introduced to it completely brand new for the first time.
Well, because if I'm not mistaken, they didn't see the actual structure to the day of.
Right.
So they had blueprints to go off of. And even I believe even those changed during the making of the actual structure. So when you start dealing with high spots too, and you'd have no idea what you're dealing with, things, you know, going live when you're not ready to go live can be a problem. So it doesn't surprise me that people got hurt. I don't think any of those guys, none of the 6 guys who competed in that first Elimination Chamber match talked really highly about the match because it was a mess.
It was definitely a mess. So he gets injured, courtesy of Rob Van Dam. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I know it involved
his throat.
Triple H's throat. So he was rushed to the hospital right after the event. So he did lose the title. Shawn Michaels becomes the World Heavyweight Champion. And there's, as far as house show information and TV tapings, there's really not a whole lot going on with this belt up until basically the next pay-per-view, which was December 15th of 2002, and that's Armageddon, where Triple H defeats Shawn Michaels to win the title back, that being the World Heavyweight Championship. And that happened at the Office Depot Center in Sunrise, Florida, or Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
I believe that was a 3 Stages of Hell match too. Basically a 2 out of 3 falls match.
Yes.
With each fall being something different.
That's a match I would like to see more of.
It's definitely an intriguing concept. That I mean, we see 2 out of 3 falls, but to have each fall be something different, it's definitely unique.
Hell yeah.
Definitely a unique style of gimmick match right there.
So there's not a whole lot going on with this title, which is disappointing. You unify, you take 23 years of history away, and you unify this title, and then not much gets done with it. Due in part to an injury, but also Shawn Michaels isn't really that active at this point.
Right.
So
what do you have on Raw?
Well, I mean,
tag team titles.
Well, he makes his appearances and whatnot, and he does have his interviews, and
he's already a better champion than Brock Lesnar.
That's not saying much. But yeah, you basically go a whole month where really nothing happens with this title, and then again it gets defended in December of that year, and Triple H wins it back. He would go on to hold the belt through January of 2003. One of the notables here is Triple H defeating Tajiri in Tokyo, which you can actually catch that on YouTube. We'll actually put it on one of our YouTube playlists for this episode. There's a fan cam version. It's actually a pretty decent version too, pretty decent quality. So
nice.
But yeah, that takes place in Tokyo on the 25th of January 2003. There's a little discrepancy here because 6 days later, he's supposed to have a title defense at a house show, and he comes out and states that he's hurt. Now, me personally, I couldn't find any information on whether this was an actual injury or he was just working his opponent or would-be opponent, but this actually ended up changing the main event for the house show. So Triple H is no longer defending the title, and instead we get a University of Minnesota alumni versus University of Minnesota alumni in Brock Lesnar versus Shelton Benjamin. And what stuck out even more about this was they were both SmackDown wrestlers at the time.
Yeah.
On a Raw house show.
I don't. Maybe again, this is where WWE comes in, and they're good marketers. That's what they're really good at, is marketing. And because of the situation, you're in Minnesota for this house show, and you build it up as, again, the alumni of University of Minnesota, cheap pops. The fans, I'm sure, probably forgot about everything that night, as far as Triple H goes.
To be honest with you, I would rather watch the Benjamin Lesnar match at this point.
At that time, I'd love to watch that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I love Shelton Benjamin now. I love even more then when he was in his prime or close to his prime. Brock Lesnar, though, too, was putting on a lot better matches back then, too.
Way better. And so we see, so that happens, and then he did wrestle on the 19th of January, which was shortly before this little gray area we just talked about, but he did wrestle at the Royal Rumble, which happened on the 19th of January 2003. He loses to Scott Steiner, and he had Ric Flair in his corner. Scott Steiner wins by disqualification, and Triple H retains the heavyweight championship. Happened in about 18 minutes, a little over 18 minutes, at the Fleet Center in Boston, Massachusetts. So,
well, he was also doing some tag matches too on Raw. A couple tag matches with Batista, and two tag team matches in probably about a 3-week span. And they were short matches. None of them went above 7 minutes. I can't tell you. I haven't watched those Raws recently, so I don't know what his status was as far as a tag team match goes. If he spent most of the time, if he was more of an appearance than an actual wrestling match for him.
Right.
So again, it kind of goes into that what kind of injury it is, because the Tajiri match you didn't really see.
No, again, we'll have that match on the playlist for this episode, and you're more than welcome to view it yourself. But I couldn't tell of any injuries happening during that match. So if he did get injured during that match, it was hard telling.
Yeah, my guess is it had to have been extremely minor, because if he's putting on an 18-minute match at Royal Rumble, I mean, either that or he's on some really good meds. So, I mean, who knows?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's not necessarily out of the question.
That's true. That's very true.
I gotta tell you, us watching this match during No Mercy 2002, where the belts get unified, I was commenting to Matt for the Titantron, for the graphics for the Titantron or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You had Triple H holding the big gold belt, the World Heavyweight Championship, and then you have Kane, who's massive, and he's holding the Intercontinental title. And between the big gold belt and Kane being big, it makes the Intercontinental title look so fucking small, like a toy replica almost.
I hated that belt though too. That
version, yeah, I didn't like it either.
It was really generic. I love when Cody Rhodes brought back the white strap, and I'm glad they kept it ever since. I love the belt now.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful.
You look beautiful.
I know. I try.
Triple H would eventually head back to pay-per-view and defend the title at No Way Out 2003. But about a week before that, on Raw, they ended up having a tribute package to the now late great Mr. Perfect, a.k.a. Kurt Hennig, who had passed away a week before that on February 10th of 2003. You can't mention the Intercontinental title without mentioning Kurt Hennig, especially after coming in as Mr. Perfect. All those vignettes of him, the swat of the gum, the behind the back, the
towel.
Those
aren't easy to do either. I every time I chew gum, I do it, and I'm probably about like 500 on hitting that gum. So.
You've got the football pass. You've got the basketball shot.
The football pass to himself.
Yeah. You can find some pretty interesting stories on Bruce Pritchard's podcast about these, because he was there producing at least some of those vignettes.
Yeah.
He goes on to say that he actually had to trick Kurt Hennig into recording these feats of greatness because Hennig was toying with him. So what he would do was they would practice, and Hennig would hit all of the shots all the time, like no bullshit. Whether it be the pool ball trick or the basketball, things like that. He would get the towel and the gum. He would get them spot on all the time. But the moment they actually went to record the actual vignettes, Hennig would fuck up. And that's kind of one of the ways he found out Hennig was such a ribber. Are you familiar with any of Hennig's other ribs?
You have to light me a little bit here. I think so.
Oh, I was going to ask you if you had a favorite.
Oh, no. I not on the top of my head, no.
Okay. My favorite is when Lex Luger was in the WWF.
Okay.
They would wrestle each other here and there on house shows or tapings, things like that. And Luger's ring attire had these like very scale-like pieces of fabric on his boots, and every time they wrestled, Lex Luger would always freak out about his appearance. He was the narcissist.
Yes.
And so that it wasn't just a gimmick. He was pretty enamored with himself, and he cared very much in his appearance. But Mr. Perfect would, every match they wrestled, he would pluck one from his boots and show it to him, or he would fuck with him and not pluck one and tell him he was going to during the match, and it would throw Luger off all the time. That's one of my favorite ones. But you can't talk about the Intercontinental title without talking about Mr. Perfect. Out of all those vignettes, do you have a favorite?
The touchdown pass.
The touchdown pass.
That was always my favorite. I love the stuff he did with Wade Boggs too.
The touchdown pass was filmed in two separate pieces. There was no way in hell he could do that. But when he came back, and those were some of the later vignettes. The football one being one of them. They just went over the top with it, and they were doing stuff like that just to make him that much more perfect.
Yeah,
but the classic stuff.
I don't know how you and I were in two totally different worlds when he came back in 2002. Were you excited for him to come back? And he looked okay for what
he did.
His age.
He looked okay. Yeah, I was excited. I knew it wasn't going to be exactly the same. Because let's face it, it doesn't matter who we're talking about. When someone comes back from an injury or being gone from a company for such a long time, it's just not the same.
Yes.
You're not going to have the same effect. Very rarely does that happen. So yeah, it was bittersweet, in the very least for me. It was nice to see him, but again, it wasn't the old. It wasn't the Kurt Hennig of old. But getting back on topic, we are talking about the Intercontinental Championship, or more importantly, when it got retired. Still very fucking hard to believe for me.
It's such a weird.
It just sounds bizarre.
It doesn't come off the tongue nicely. It's like the Intercontinental title is a defunct title.
That's just crazy to hear.
Can't be.
We're talking about the month of February 2003. No Way Out 2003. Triple H, again with Ric Flair in his corner, ends up defeating Scott Steiner.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah. He said stupider shit, trust me.
Hear him do math. Oh my goodness.
Scott Steiner math is some of the funniest shit ever. So yeah, Triple H defeats Scott Steiner to retain the World Heavyweight Championship in a little over 13 minutes at the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
Hello, Canada.
Yeah, hello to all of our Canadian listeners out there. All like two of you. So he goes on and he does that successful house show run again in 2003, where he has seven successful title defenses this time.
Okay.
5 against Booker T and 2 against Scott Steiner. These take place between March 1st, 2003 and March 16th, 2003. Again, making his rounds as heavyweight champ. I couldn't really get that much information on these as to whether he went over clean or these were disqualifications.
Okay.
I don't think it matters at this point.
No.
But it would have been kind of interesting to know, especially since Kane lost all DQs. That would have been really interesting to find out whether they let him go over clean against Booker T or Scott Steiner.
There's at least one I'm looking at. I'm not going to look them all up, but there's one in February where he goes over clean against Booker T.
Okay.
So there you have it. And I'm looking at this house show too, by the way. They're all singles matches. There's no title matches, and I don't know. Maybe it's just the kind of wrestling fan I am, but it's like there should at least be a couple title matches in every show, especially a house show, where it's it's just for fun. I get it, and you shouldn't be expecting a title change. That's extremely rare if they do, but it just adds a little more emphasis to the match. I feel my opinion on that.
Definitely. I've only been to a handful of house shows, WWF house shows.
Myself.
Yeah. I'd say 3, probably no more than 4 for me. It's always cool to see a title match.
Yeah.
Whether the title changes hands or not, it's cool to see. It's just added value to the card.
Exactly. Obviously now you have one less title because the Intercontinental title is no more. But yeah, it just kind of, to me, it just hurts the card a little bit. I know it's all for fun and everything, but it's nice to have those added gimmicks, if you will, if you want to call them that, in the titles.
Triple H would go on to perform on the March 13th episode of Monday Night Raw in a non-title match against Hurricane Shane Helms. Again, I haven't watched this Raw in quite some time, so I couldn't tell you what actually led up to this match, if anything. But he wins. He wins over Hurricane on TV. Again, not for the title. So he does wrestle, but it was a non-title match. Flair's with Triple H. It's funny because Hurricane kind of pulls a Bret Hart and gives his mask to one of the kids at ringside, and Flair runs up right behind him, steals the mask and from the kid, no less, and then stomps on it in front of the kid.
Hashtag support the heels.
There you go. Support the heels. That leads us into April. Again, in April 2003, there's no mention of any title defenses for Triple H in the month of April 2003. But this does bring us to Backlash of 2003. That happened on April 27th. It kind of goes like this. You know, the aftermath of a six-man tag team match from Backlash was a feud over the heavyweight championship between Kevin Nash and Triple H. The feud officially begins at a Raw on April 28th, the night after Backlash, during a tag team match for the titles, for the tag titles, involving Triple H and Ric Flair facing Kane and Rob Van Dam, who were the current champs. Triple H attempted a pinfall on Rob Van Dam. Nash came down to the ring and chased Triple H to the backstage area with his sledgehammer. Triple H runs towards the limousine, and Nash smashed the window with the sledgehammer and threw it into the limousine as it took off with Triple H. The following week on Raw, the co-general managers of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Eric Bischoff announced that the World Heavyweight Championship match between Nash and Triple H would take place at Judgment Day. And then at Judgment Day, Triple H was disqualified to retain the Heavyweight Championship in Worcester, Massachusetts, at the Central Civic Center. So he continues to go on with this fucking title reign. What is your opinion of Triple H as a heavyweight champion? Do you remember any of this?
I remember him being given the title, and keep in mind this is late 2002, so I'm 13.
Okay.
I'm just a teenager, and I am motherfucking the screen because it's like I was like, he didn't even have to do anything, you know. And I'm like just I'm completely marking out for all the wrong reasons. I hated it, and I do remember the feud against Scott Steiner. My brother's a huge, I don't know why, but he's a huge Scott Steiner fan. Love Scott, love you. I love you. Thank you for listening to the show. I don't know. We've never really agreed on many wrestlers. He's a Hogan fan. He's a Scott Steiner fan. He's a Luger fan.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so, we'll just move on there. But I remember he went to one of the shows in early 2003 when Scott Steiner was there. And he was all about Steiner winning the title. And I was like, he ain't going to beat Triple H. It ain't going to happen. And I remember I was cheering for Triple H in that sense because of the fact that I hated Scott Steiner. I do remember the rivalry with Booker T and WrestleMania. This is a whole nother topic, but I truly feel that Booker T got robbed at WrestleMania.
Oh, he got buried for sure. That's pretty fucking common knowledge there.
So yeah, we should talk about that, but on another show, another episode. But I do remember the Kevin Nash rivalry. If I'm not mistaken, that unless I'm thinking the wrong year, but that eventually leads to a Hell in a Cell match. I want to say at Bad Blood in June.
Yeah, that sounds like a thing. I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head. I'm not that good, folks.
I just don't remember. I think he keeps that title all the way until SummerSlam, if I'm not mistaken.
I kept all that information in the toe that I lost.
There it is. It's gone. I don't know where it's at. It's in a jar somewhere.
It's in a jar somewhere.
I think he keeps it all the way to SummerSlam, and where he ironically loses it in another Elimination Chamber match.
That's a hell of a place to lose a toe. Yeah.
I think if my history is correct, he loses it to Gilbert, I'm sorry, Goldberg.
Goldberg, yeah.
Sorry, Gilbert's better.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that one.
But I think so.
Send your hate tweets to us at 20x20crew on Twitter.
Yeah, just so long as there's no pictures of Goldberg's shirtless son. I am done seeing that kid without a shirt.
this title reign continues, but we get to the eventual reactivation of the Intercontinental Championship, and that takes place on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo of 2003, at a Raw where, of all people, Stone Cold Steve Austin, as co-general manager, reinstates the Intercontinental Championship.
And we're back at it.
And we're back at it. We're out of this weird, bizarre hiatus.
Yeah, weird 8 months of no Intercontinental title.
Not to get too off topic, but 15 days later, on May 18th, Judgment Day happens. Christian wins a battle royal, an 8-man battle royal, to crown a new Intercontinental Champion. And the way he does it was, I recently watched this pay-per-view again to do notes for the show, but it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. He, for those of you who haven't seen it, obviously you're more than welcome to view it on the network. But what happens is the ref takes a bump, and Booker T throws Christian out, and his music hits, and everybody thinks Booker T wins. But guess what? There's no ref to view the actual elimination of Christian. So Christian realizes this. He gets back in the ring, takes care of business, and waits till the ref gets back up, and then he throws Booker T over the top rope.
What a slimy thing to do.
And there you have your new Intercontinental Champion.
Slimy heels.
The other notable thing about this pay-per-view was that Hulk Hogan is wrestling in a mask as Mr. America.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And this is the actual pay-per-view debut of Mr. America.
Yep.
He comes out to face Roddy Piper, with Sean O'Haire in Piper's corner, because if I'm not mistaken, at the time Sean O'Haire was quote unquote his protege.
Yes.
And Hulk Hogan was fighting for Zach Gowen.
Yes.
At the time, the
kid with the one leg.
The kid with the one leg, who Piper. It was obviously staged, but weeks leading up to this, Piper got into it with Zach Gowen at ringside. He ends up pulling him in the ring, and he goes to pull him away from the ropes, and his leg comes off, and shocked the hell out of Roddy Piper. So, and also really quick too, this was also on that same pay-per-view, Judgment Day 2003. This was also the pay-per-view debut of La Resistance.
Solid tag team for what they were doing. They never gave those guys the chance that they deserved.
One of the guys, for whatever reason, reminds me. It's got to be just like his facial features. He reminds me of Matt Tavern from Ring of Honor, from the Kingdom, if you remember.
I think you're talking about Sylvain Grenier.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Rene Dupree and that French tickler, man. That just got me every time. It's so stupid, but I liked it though. But there's not a whole lot to talk about when it comes to Judgment Day 2003. If you don't want to watch the show, you're not missing much. It's remembered most for the bikini contest between Tori Wilson and Sable, which is fun to watch. But
yeah, of course.
But other than that, it's a forgotten show for the most part. It's pretty mediocre at best. But what's huge and significant about it is that it's, we're talking about it on the 15th, 15 years ago today, that we bring back one of the most prestigious championships in WWE history. And you can talk about the slimy heel way that it was won that night, which I'm not against. I love heels. I love good storytelling, which that was. But it was bringing back the title that, in all honesty, and I'm not even saying in hindsight, even back then in October 2002, it should have never been taken away.
Yeah, it should have never been taken away. It went away for quite the shitty reason.
Yeah.
And it kind of just came back out of nowhere with...
There was no build-up to it.
Yeah, there's no build-up. An equally shitty situation. Just like, here, it's back now.
Yeah.
So
it's like, here, sorry, we need a title again. We need another placeholder.
we were discussing the topic of the Intercontinental Championship in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/20x20talk.
Please join.
Please join.
Absolutely free to you.
Yeah.
And you get to talk to fellow wrestling fans as well as the 20x20 crew.
Absolutely. We were discussing this title, and we were asking folks who their favorite Intercontinental Champion was and what version of the belt. Obviously, you were talking about the version that Cody Rhodes brought back and how that's the white strap.
Beautiful.
Yeah, definitely a beautiful belt. Somewhere floating around, I have pictures of me with the yellow version.
Oh, okay.
From years ago. I was at a WrestleMania Fan Access in Detroit, and I got to take pictures with it. So
nice.
that was pretty cool.
That was really cool, yeah. That one didn't last long, did it?
No, it did.
Early 90s, right?
Yeah, early 90s. I don't know why it was yellow. I know I want to assume it was either Ravishing Rick Rude or the Ultimate Warrior.
Well, Warrior had that title.
So it
I
had
don't know
to
who came up with it though.
It had to have been the Warrior because he ended up doing a few different colors.
Okay.
To match some of his ring attire setups. So.
Probably the only creative thing he ever did.
Your favorite Intercontinental Champion?
Because of the timing for me and what he brought to the table, for me it's Chris Jericho, hands down. He had some of the best matches as Intercontinental Champion, and one of my all-time favorites ones would be and it doesn't get talked about a lot. And now it's because of the certain individual who he had it against, but Royal Rumble 2001, Jericho versus Benoit, Chris Benoit for the Intercontinental title. Those guys tore the house down that night.
It was a hell of a match.
Yeah, as they did all, so many other times, But yeah, that was one of my standout matches, and yeah, Chris Jericho for me. Again, it goes. I don't need to introduce this guy. I mean, he's obviously one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. But there was something different about him as Intercontinental Champion. Something special about it. Even more so than him as World Champion, whether it be Undisputed or during his second coming, if you will, in the late 2000s, early 2010s. But him as Intercontinental Champion is some of the best matches I've seen ever. And he always stood out to me as the best, in my opinion, amongst so many great names to choose from.
I grew up with Don Morocco as my first Intercontinental Champion. He's not my favorite, but that's who I started with. He actually won it for that period. He won it January 22nd of 1983. I got into wrestling shortly thereafter. So he was my first Intercontinental Champ. He won it at a house show, that's always, again, going back to what we were talking about, house shows. That had to have been pretty cool for them to see that title change there. My favorite is the Honky Tonk Man, and I'm not just saying that because he's got the longest reign and he's like one of the more popular ones. For me, it's none of that. I think you and I both are not necessarily fans of streaks, but for the Honky Tonk Man, what makes him my favorite is he did it as a heel.
Yeah,
he wasn't a babyface, and he really didn't have to do very much for the crowd to hate him. You're coming to out to the ring to wrestle, and you're a fucking Elvis impersonator, and you already had that against you.
Yeah.
Not everybody's a fan of the King, especially in that day and age of, fucking rock and wrestling, basically. So
yeah, in that neck of the woods, too.
Yeah, New York is not necessarily an Elvis-friendly place at the time. But, yeah, and then when he did go in the ring and do whatever he decided to do to get over as a heel, again, very little effort, but it went so far so quick, and he just made a great heel champ. One of my favorite matches the Saturday night main event taping where it was him against the Macho Man Randy Savage, and the Hart Foundation got involved, and Mach took a guitar to the head, courtesy of the Honky Tonk Man. Man, I fucking love that. I lived for that. Saturday night's main event, waiting all weekend for it to come, and staying up late, and that was awesome stuff. We're just about done with this episode, but I do have one more question for you. So we just talked about how Triple H unified the title with the World Heavyweight Championship, and went on to carry that unified title for months, the better part of 8 months, on and off. Let's go back. April 1st, 1990, WrestleMania 6. You have Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior. Warrior goes into the match as Intercontinental Champion. He beats Hulk Hogan for the the WWF Heavyweight Championship, and the Intercontinental title gets vacated. I bring this up for two reasons. One, in our Facebook group, I had mentioned that those were kind of some of my favorite Intercontinental Championship moments where there was no champ, and so you either had to go through a tournament or at least a series of matches, what have you, in order to get that title back. And because it already had prestige behind it, more often than not, the guys that were in the running for the title when it was vacated were pretty much top guys in the company. So it was always really cool and interesting to see them vie for an open title.
Right.
So those are probably my most favorite Intercontinental Championship moments. But the other reason I bring it up is I want your opinion. They did it here at WrestleMania 6. The title is simply just vacated. There's no unification.
Mm-hmm.
How different of a picture are we looking at if this happens between Triple H and Kane, where Kane is just forced to drop it and vacate it so that Triple H becomes sole World Heavyweight Champion at the time?
I think it makes for better TV at this point, because there's something special about, as you mentioned there, with tournaments that bring it about. And you have November. You could do it certainly at Survivor Series. You want to do it quick, but it might be a stretch here. But you're also looking at WrestleMania season as well, too. Again, that's a stretch, I admit. But
yeah, because back then there was no necessarily hyped WrestleMania season.
Yeah.
Not like it is now.
Right. But I guess my point is you have so many different opportunities now to plug Raw even more. I know Vince doesn't think he has to, but plug Raw even more to where it's like, okay, now we're going to have a who's who tournament of potential Intercontinental Champions, and it's going to culminate at this pay-per-view, whatever it is that was going to be. Instead of having no champion, because you had the 1 month of Shawn Michaels, who I guess was making appearances, but that was about it. And then the rest of the time where Triple H was on again, off again, as far as the injury is concerned. So, and then you had no Intercontinental Champion to back it up. So look at what the Intercontinental Championship is today. You have no Universal Championship; it doesn't exist most weeks. So,
fuck.
So you have the Intercontinental Championship. It main evented this past week's episode of Raw. Again, that's your title to kind of say, hey, we still have legitimacy here. So that could have been a big deal for really a bad time for Raw, that late 2000s, early 2002, early 2003. And a lot of it, I'm not saying all of it, but a lot of it is because you took away something that was so special, and now there's nothing to fill that void, because you have two champions in that time frame, and neither one of them are really doing a hell of a whole lot to push that title, especially for the first 3 months of it being gone.
After WrestleMania 6, when Warrior vacated the title, they held the tournament.
Yeah.
And again, definitely one of my favorite times to watch the Intercontinental title action going on. The tournament culminated not quite a month later, about 21 days later, in Austin, Texas, at a Superstars of Wrestling taping where Mr. Perfect defeated Tito Santana to win the vacant title. So I'm right with you. Such a lost opportunity to take such a prestigious title and utilize it more properly. Even if it was considered a prop by whoever was in charge of booking or production, hell of a wasted opportunity.
Well, my thing is, when you, for any wrestling company that has a significantly big roster, so I'm leaving some of the smaller companies, promotions out, indie promotions out of this, but you look at a Ring of Honor, they don't have an Intercontinental title, but they have a television title. You have New Japan Pro Wrestling, they have an Intercontinental title. They also have a U.S. title now, and they have the Never Openweight Championship, as far as their heavyweight division is concerned. You know, you had WCW. They had United States Championship at the time. You know, ECW had a television title. My point is, having secondary titles is good for the business. It's great for the business. Whether it be a stepping stone for, like, when Stone Cold was the Intercontinental title champion, and then he basically threw it away, quite literally, threw it in some water, and then went for the world title. Eventually would become world champion. Never looked back. Or, you know, it's, again, the workers title, where you have a guy like Mr. Perfect. You have, I'm looking at some other names here. You know, Bret Hart, who, he ended up becoming world champion, I get that. Shawn Michaels, too. But British Bulldog, Roddy Piper, you know.
Tito
Santana, yeah, exactly. You know, no matter how you feel about him, the Honky Tonk Man, Rick Rude, never won a world title, but they were Intercontinental champions. And they were some of the best matches to watch on that card, because it was great wrestlers. Didn't matter if they were the heavyweight champion or world champion, whatever you want to call them, but they had this prop, if you will, and it meant something. And that's what's important about any title. It has to mean something. And when it left, even in 2002, it still meant something. That's why it was so hard to digest, taking it away, because it's like taking something that, you know, we appreciate you today, but now tomorrow, the hell with you. And it's just, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And, you know, I can keep going down this list of guys who never won world titles but former Intercontinental championships. Like, the prestige is so goddamn high, and it deserves a spot in the WWE. And it's shocking to me still, 15 years later, that we're talking about an anniversary of it being brought back, because I still don't know why it was ever approved to be taken away in the first place.
Yeah, just bad call on Vince's part. But there you have it, folks. That is the time the Intercontinental Championship was deactivated and became defunct. Again, still sounds so very fucking bizarre.
It's like one of those weird episodes of 30 for 30. What if I told you the Intercontinental title was taken away for no reason? It's like, I gotta watch this show because that makes no sense. That happened. It happened, and it's one of those things that doesn't get talked about a whole lot anymore, but it's a legit thing, unfortunately.
On that note, we're gonna wrap up the show for this week. We thank you for listening. As always, thank you for your support. Again, if you want to support the show, visit us over at 20x20crew.com. You can obviously listen to our podcast there. You can download past episodes. This is episode 13, so you've got a whole dirty dozen of listening for your enjoyment up there on the website. You can catch us on Twitter at 20x20crew, on Instagram at 20x20crew. Facebook.com/20x20 is our page, and you can again talk to us in our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/20x20talk.
We need subscriptions on YouTube.
Yes, for those of you who still YouTube and peruse hours and hours of video like Matt and I do from time to time, There's tons of fucking wrestling on YouTube these days. Classic wrestling too. Hard to find shit. That's the best part about having YouTube right now.
Yes.
But we're on YouTube as well. Go ahead and subscribe to us. You can find the information on our website at 20x20crew.com. But definitely hit that subscribe button on YouTube for us. We need all the help and support we can get. You can also help us out by getting yourself an Amazon Prime subscription. I don't know how many times I gotta hawk this thing, folks, but we get a little love for you signing up. You can cancel right away. Otherwise, take advantage of the 30 days.
And cancel anyways.
And cancel anyway. It won't cost you shit. It won't cost you a dime, and we still get the financial support from Amazon for doing the show.
It's risk-free, ladies and gentlemen.
And you get all kinds of wrestling. USWA is on there. Classic Memphis Wrestling. PCW Ultra. Those are just 3 to name a few.
Yeah, there's more out there that we haven't even dived into yet.
There's definitely more out there. All free to watch if you have a Prime subscription. Hours and hours of video footage from wrestling moments past. Quality shit too, mind you.
Yes.
So definitely, please take advantage of stuff like that. Have a ball for 30 days on us. That's all I'm saying. And you can do that over at 20x20crew.com/podcast/Amazon.
Please continue to support the 20x20 crew. As always, support professional wrestling of all kinds.
Hashtag support the heels.
Hashtag support the Intercontinental Championship.
Oh shit, there you go.
Don't take it away from me again, please.
Hashtag support the baby faces. Support
those guys too.
Support your 20x20 crew. And until next week, I am Joe, he is Matt, and we will see you in the ring.
As your new No, hold on.
Woo! Wait a minute. Wait just a second is right. I wonder what... Well, there's Nature Boy Ric Flair, and you got to wonder what he's doing out here.
You're exactly right. I do wonder what he's doing out here. Quite frankly, he's got no business out here right now. He's like, this is ruining us. I mean, you got to admit, JR, this was a wonderful, touching ceremony.
We might not be running it. You don't know that.
Well, in my opinion, just this mere presence ruins it. He interrupted Triple H right in the middle of mid-sentence. The new champion. This ain't all about you, Flair. Hurry up.
Hey, like everyone else, if Lesnar refused to wrestle on Raw, the title he's wearing is most definitely disputed.
I agree with that.
And I think that the biggest wrestling company in the world, I'm talking about Raw, your company deserves to have its own world champion.
Without a doubt.
And you know what, Eric? I'm even inclined to go as far as say, as you may be the man. After all, you wore this, you're the first, you wore it, you defended it, and everybody says now, Triple H is the man. I got no problem with that. The problem I have is that you wore it once, I wore it 16 times.
And that, folks, is a fact.
Yeah, but so what? You come out here to say that?
And nobody gift wrapped it, brought it out here in a gold Halliburton, and gave it to me. I won it right here by busting my ass, right in the middle of this ring.
That's a good point, King.
Bled, woo, sweat, and paid the price of a wrestling lifetime. So what I'm saying to you and to you is, I think you need not to just put that over your shoulder tonight. You need to earn the right to wear it out that door.
Hey, you know what? He may be onto something. For the first time in a long time, you and I definitely agree.
But this isn't like SmackDown. We don't need some bogus series to determine who gets a shot. We're going to make that match right here tonight. First time in history, mind you, here on Raw. Triple H, the world champion, faces the Nature Boy, Ric Flair.
Wait a minute!
Now that's what you call a main event. And that's some more history. The first time ever.
What are you thinking? I think that it would be an honor and a privilege.
Wow. Sounds like it's on to me.
And I think I'm probably the luckiest man to be in this squared circle to know that I'm going to wrestle you as the first contender. I'm equally honored.
Triple H, do that world championship proud. And Nature Boy Ric Flair, 17, could be right around the corner for you, my friend. Good luck to you.
Oh, damn! A cheap shot by the world champion, just nailing Ric Flair.
What do you mean a cheap shot? Everyone that came out here wanted to fight. You got to fight now, Flair. You like the way it started?
Well, the game thinks he's a man, but as Ric Flair said, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And what a shot! First time ever tonight, the new world champion, the Game, and Nature Boy Ric Flair are going to get it on for the gold tonight, King.